It started in the dim glow of a lawyer's conference room. The kind of place where fortunes are made or shattered behind polished oak doors. I sat there. Emily Carter, 23 years old. My hands trembling slightly on the armrests of a stiff chair, dressed in faded jeans and a thrift store blouse that smelled faintly of the shelter I'd called home for 7 years. Across from me, my parents, John and Linda Carter, perched like vultures in their tailored suits. Their faces a mask of entitlement, whispering urgently to the attorney as if I weren't even in the room. They had rushed here the moment they heard about Aunt Margaret's estate, convinced it was theirs by some twisted right of association. But as the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, dimmed the lights and hit play on the video, the air thickened with a silence that pressed against my chest like a gathering storm. Aunt Margaret's face filled the screen. Her eyes, those kind, piercing eyes I'd clung to in secret meetings over the years, now carrying the weight of a truth long buried. This wasn't just a reading. This was the unraveling of a betrayal that had defined my life. A slow-burning fuse leading to an explosion none of us could escape. 7 years earlier, on a rainy autumn night in suburban Chicago, my world had cracked open. I was 16. Awkward and introverted. More at home with sketchbooks and poetry than the cheer squads and social galas my parents craved. John, a mid-level executive at a tech firm, and Linda, a real estate agent with dreams of flipping mansions, had built their lives around appearances, the country club memberships, the European vacations, the facade of the perfect family. I didn't fit. My quiet rebellion? Questioning their endless spending, their obsession with status. But the real fracture came when I asked about my college fund, the one Aunt Margaret had set up at my birth. Their faces had twisted then, a flash of guilt quickly masked by rage. "You're ungrateful," my father had snarled, shoving 2 garbage bags of my clothes into my arms. "A disappointment we can't afford." They drove me to the edge of the city, handed me $50, and left me on a desolate bus stop bench. "Don't come back," my mother said, her voice cold as the wind whipping through the streets. Their story to the world? I was a troubled teen, running away from home. The truth? They had erased me to hide their shame. Survival became my shadow those years. I learned the rhythms of the streets in Chicago's underbelly, the safest alleys to curl up in, the food pantries with the least judgmental volunteers, the art of blending into crowds to avoid the pitying stares or worse, the predators. Hunger gnawed at my gut, but loneliness carved deeper scars. A constant whisper in my mind that I was worthless, discarded like yesterday's trash. Therapy? A luxury for those with roofs. I bottled the pain, let it simmer in silence, turning inward until trust felt like a myth. Only one person pierced that isolation, Aunt Margaret Hayes, my godmother, a reclusive philanthropist whose fortune came from savvy investments in green tech. She wasn't blood-related, but she'd been my parents' entry into high society, a connection they milked while pretending to care for her in her declining health, a battle with chronic lung disease that confined her to her sprawling estate on Lake Michigan's shore. She found me weeks after the abandonment, through a mutual acquaintance at a soup kitchen. "Emily, my dear," she'd whispered in our first clandestine meeting at a quiet bookstore cafe, slipping me cash and a warm coat. They forbade me from helping openly, threatened to cut ties if I took you in. "But I won't let you vanish." Our bond was a hidden lifeline monthly rendezvous in parks or libraries, where she'd listen to my sketches of dreams deferred, her frail hands clasping mine. She couldn't offer a home, but her quiet support kept the spark of hope alive, even as her health faded. Her death, announced in a terse obituary I read on a library computer, shattered me. I grieved alone, under fluorescent shelter lights, convinced the last thread of kindness had snapped. Then came the summons. A crisp envelope delivered by a courier to the shelter, inviting me to the will reading. I almost tore it up, suspecting a cruel ploy from my parents. But loyalty to Aunt Margaret pulled me in. Walking into Thompson and Associates' office in downtown Chicago, I felt their eyes on me, John's narrowing in disdain, Linda's flaring with possessive fury. "What is she doing here?" my father demanded, his voice echoing the authority he wielded in boardrooms. "This is family business, Mr. Thompson." A stoic man in his 50s adjusted his glasses. "Ms. Hayes was explicit. Emily must be present." He read the preliminaries, minor donations to environmental charities, then paused. The bulk of the estate, valued at over $12 million, including the lakefront property, stock portfolios, and liquid assets, goes to my goddaughter, Emily Carter. The room ignited. Linda leaped up, her manicured nails digging into the table. "This is insane. We managed her affairs, visited her weekly. We were her family. That street rat hasn't earned a dime." John nodded, his face reddening. "We'll contest this. She's unfit." Their words stung, reopening old wounds. But I stayed silent, my heart pounding with a mix of disbelief and a budding rage. This wasn't about money for me. It was the validation of years swallowed by their lies. The tension coiled tighter, a psychological noose around us all. "Mr. Thompson raised a hand. "There's more. Ms. Hayes left a personal message." He activated the screen. And there she was, Aunt Margaret, propped in her velvet armchair, oxygen tube discreetly in place, but her gaze fierce, unyielding. The video's intimacy hit like a whisper in the ear, drawing us into her final confession. "John." "Linda," she began, her voice steady but laced with sorrow, "if you're watching, you've come for what you think is yours. And Emily, my sweet girl." Her eyes softened, as if reaching through the pixels to hold me. "This is for you, the truth I've carried too long." My parents shifted, discomfort etching their features. They expected legalese, not this ghostly confrontation. The betrayal's depth unfolded slowly, deliberately, building like thunder on the horizon. "Let's discuss the education trust one funded for Emily, $150,000 for her future." Documents flashed on screen, bank records, withdrawal forms bearing their signatures. You siphoned it dry over a decade. Club dues, luxury sedans, ski trips to Aspen. You stole her dreams to fuel your vanity. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. John's jaw clenched, denial flickering in his eyes. But the evidence was ironclad, a digital indictment of their greed. Aunt Margaret's tone sharpened, a damning crescendo. When the money vanished and Emily grew curious, "You couldn't face exposure. So you fabricated her rebellion, abandoned her to the streets at 16. You didn't just fail as parents, you committed fraud. Embezzlement under Illinois law." The room spun for me, the psychological scars ripped open anew. Their silence during my homelessness? Not indifference, but cover-up. The pain twisted deeper, years of self-doubt, wondering if I deserved the abandonment, now revealed as their cowardice. Their faces drained of color, the arrogance crumbling into panic. "She's delusional," Linda muttered, but her voice cracked. "The lie feeble." John stared at the floor, shame radiating like heat. Aunt Margaret continued, her words a psychological scalpel. "This will isn't charity, it's restitution. Emily, everything is yours, the house, the funds, my foundation for at-risk youth. Reclaim what they took." Then, turning to them, her expression iced over. "For you, a choice." A folder appeared in the video, mirrored by Mr. Thompson sliding an identical one across the table. Inside, proof of your crimes statements. Investigator reports. Option 1. Sign the confession. Renounce all claims. Apologize to Emily here and now. The file stays sealed. She paused, the mercy hanging heavy. Option 2. Refuse. And Mr. Thompson delivers it to the DA. You'll face charges. Prison. The choice reflects your souls. The screen faded. Silence descended. Thick and accusatory. Mr. Thompson placed the confession and a pen before them. 1 hour. Their facade shattered in whispers, John blaming Linda for the extravagance, her retorting about his failed investments. The betrayal's cost hit me, not just financial ruin, but the emotional void. The trust annihilated. I rose, voice steady despite the storm inside. The money? Forgivable. But the years, the isolation. The doubt you planted in me? That's the real theft. And Aunt Margaret? You robbed us both of time. I walked out, leaving them to their reckoning. The weight of silence finally lifting from my chest. Freedom tasted like the crisp Chicago wind as I stepped onto the bustling street. The inheritance was overwhelming, meetings with fiduciaries, keys to the lakefront mansion, but it paled against the justice. Mr. Thompson called later. They'd signed. No apology beyond the paper's cold legalese. Contact ceased, their pride too bruised for remorse. I dove into Aunt Margaret's legacy, discovering her secret battles against poverty through her foundation. My first move? Funding Margaret's Haven, a shelter for homeless teens with counseling, art programs, job training, turning my trauma into triage for others. Standing at its opening a year later, ribbon in hand, I felt the psychological scars fading, replaced by purpose. The revenge wasn't vengeance, it was transcendence. A quiet triumph over their betrayal. But the price lingered, the irreversible loss of family. The echo of silence in my heart. In America's unforgiving grind, where status devours souls, I built from the ruins, honoring the woman who saw my worth when the world didn't. And in that, the cycle of pain broke, one healed wound at a time.